Has that streaming income, is it leveled off? Is it continuing to rise? Has it decreased?
I would say that streaming income for me is on a rise, and it's been a pretty hefty rise. The last several years, I have been increasing somewhere between 15 and 20%
Wow.
growth over the last several years.
What advice would you have for people who are wanting to pursue this, whether they're instrumentalists or they're wanting to pursue a similar path?
It's a multi-part thing. So number one, be
Wow, everything you just said was like a master class on how to succeed at anything. That's gold right there. It's going to be its own standalone video. For years now, you've probably been hearing musicians complain about the big changes that have happened in the music business and how it's tougher than ever to make money, especially with recorded music. And I will admit, yeah, a lot of people are feeling those challenges, and my heart goes out to you. However, there are still a number of artists, probably more than you actually think, that are doing really well in this digital era. They have found their niche, and they're not only surviving, but they're thriving. And one of those artists is joining me right now. There she is. It's Michele McLaughlin. Hi, Michele. Welcome to The Inspired Life.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's great to reconnect with you. Yes, we originally met at a CD Baby music conference, and then a couple of years ago, you were kind enough to speak to a music business class that I was doing for Lindenwood University, where I teach locally. But let's start right off the bat. Let's talk about your accolades here. I got some numbers here. I just want you to confirm, because you've done really well in the streaming world. You're a solo piano artist. Total in all the different streaming platforms, you are approaching 2 billion total streams. Is that correct? Does that just like
Correct.
astound you? Like, do you still like find it hard to
It's
reach that?
amazing. It's such a blessing and it's so amazing that that many people are out there listening to my music. Yeah.
And so, based on the numbers that I have here, just on Pandora alone, and we'll talk about why this is, because I think I know the story here, but 1.8 or more just on Pandora alone, like 74 million streams on Spotify, 14 million on Apple Music, another 14 million on Amazon. So you're covering all of the bases. And I know you released a total of 22 albums. I know you're working on more. And several of them have hit the top 10 on the Billboard New Age charts, which is pretty darn impressive. I know that you were featured, I think, along with some other artists in Rolling Stone magazine,
Yeah.
right? So was that the one
Yep.
with David Neveu was also, I think, in that one?
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think we both know him from way back. And both the online and the print versions of that. You're the winner of the Best Female Artist of the Year and Album of the Year. But who gave out that award? I'm just curious.
The Best Female Artist of the Year award was with the Independent Music Awards
Okay.
several years ago, a long time ago. And then I won Album of the Year on Whispering Solo Piano Radio. I was actually just nominated for this year's Album of the Year, but Thad Pasquella won it, and I was really happy for him. And Album of the Year on solopiano.com as well.
And I think that's still run by David Neveu. Is it
Solo
Whisperings?
Piano Radio Whisperings is David Neveu, and
Right.
solopiano.com is Matthew Mayer.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. And it says you're also streaming on Sirius XM and Music Choice Soundscapes. Like I usually don't hear Sirius mentioned as a streaming platform, or maybe your music is appearing there in a different way.
It's like when you listen on your television, through your cable, or
Okay.
maybe in your car. And yeah, I'm on the spa channel.
Okay,
I think
cool.
that's channel 78.
Wow, okay. And then the Music Choice Soundscapes, I never even have heard of that.
That's
Is that
also cable music. So Comcast, Xfinity, a lot of times is music choice.
wow,
And
that
then
is
there's a bunch of music stations you can just listen to music.
so that's awesome. Congratulations on those numbers. I mean, I know there's a lot more to your story than just these numbers, and we're going to find out how you got there. And I'm really going to dig in to share your story and how this happened for you. First, I want to ask on your website, you've got like a several word tagline that describes who you are and what you do. And it says musical storyteller to inspire and excite the imagination. Could you explain like why you chose those words and what that means to you?
Yeah, so I mean, I create piano music, and a lot of times when you tell people you play piano, they think classical or they think jazz or they feel like, maybe recital kind of music. And that's very different than what I do. I am not really in a particular style. I'm more all over the place. Like I tell a story through my music, and the music explains experiences that I've had or emotions that I've felt, places that I've been. And so I want to express to people that are coming to my site for the first time that this is a musical experience, a story told through music. So you might hear about my travels to Ireland, or you might hear about heartbreak, or you might hear about personal triumphs and joys. And so when you're listening to the music, you're not just hearing classical, you're not hearing jazz, you're not hearing new age, you're hearing a very defined musical journey through the music.
That's interesting because you always hear, and I've even preached it myself, having taught music marketing for years, about this niche and having a specific brand identity, which I think is really important early on in the career. I think over time, maybe you can widen that. But you were able to get away with not being pigeonholed, I guess, into a style at least, although it all falls under solo piano, correct?
Yeah, and it's in the new age category with you with the Billboard charts and with the Grammy Awards. I'm in the new age genre, but
Right.
it's a lot more than that.
And you mentioned it's musical storytelling. So even though when you compose these songs, you're trying to convey the feeling of going to Ireland or something, but there's no words. It's all instrumental music, correct?
Yeah, 100% solo piano, just
Right.
me and the piano.
Cool. And so it excites the imagination. So explain that because a lot of people, we're so used to hearing songs with lyrics. That's primarily what I write. And there's either a story or there's a message. Like in my case, my wife and I create upbeat, positive music with a positive, inspirational message. But you can still convey that musically without words.
Yeah, and that actually started when I started performing live. I wanted to be able to have an experience for the people that came to see my show. And so I wanted them to know what the song was about, what inspired it, where I was in my life at that time. And so I started telling stories about that with the music. And that became the defining factor of how I create my music, how I theme my albums, how I
Um,
share that story with others, that sort of thing.
So I'm curious because I know a lot of your activity is in the digital world with streaming. That's where you are known for the impact that you have there. But what role does the live performance play in your career these days?
Pre-COVID, it was pretty consistent. I toured several times a year from about 2012 all the way through to 2019. And then COVID happened and shut down events and gatherings and that sort of thing. So I completely stopped performing at the beginning of 2020. And I got back into doing concerts in, let's see, 2022. In February was my first concert back. And I've only done a small handful of events since then. So I need to get back
Yeah,
out there.
I think everybody's still easing back into things after COVID, but it's good to see that live music is alive and well and it's happening again. So let's talk about how you got to this place. Pandora has the biggest numbers. Were you on Pandora pretty early on in the streaming days?
Yeah, I want to say Pandora probably started 2006 and 2007 is kind of when I became aware of it. And it was really fresh and new then. And so I submitted several of my albums to them to see if I could get my music on their stations. And it got accepted, and they started playing my music everywhere, like on rock stations and Celtic music stations and pop stations. And so the exposure was really big back then, which helped, everyone started coming to find me on iTunes and YouTube. And that's pretty much where the growth started.
Yeah, I remember those days when Pandora was one of the early places where you can get your music streamed, but there was no aggregator. There wasn't like a DistroKid or CD Baby that you can get your music because that infrastructure didn't exist back then. So you had to submit your music individually, and they didn't let everybody in. So I remember there was a lot of there's waiting times and all that, but you must have got in early. I'm sure you had high quality stuff, and you got in. And so, being an early adopter like that, do you think there's an advantage?
Oh, yeah. I get people all the time that ask me nowadays, how do you get your music to get the same sort of, coverage on Pandora nowadays? And I'm like, well, you needed to get in there in
Yeah.
2008 and 2009 and 10.
But I think there's always a new crop of people that are getting viral videos and viral songs, and so there's still opportunities. I'm going to pick your brain about that when we get in more into your business model. So I'm sure you have some advice other than going to a DeLorean Back to the Future. So you had an advantage there, but you didn't just sit on your laurels. You had to work to keep putting music out there. And so Pandora was first, and as every new platform became available, you just pursued that.
Yeah, I'm a believer of put your eggs in every basket. If there's a
Mm,
new platform, if there's a place that you can be and expose yourself, be there. And
boy.
so Pandora was kind of the beginning. Apple Music back then was just iTunes. You couldn't really stream at that time. And then there was Rhapsody and Napster and iHeartRadio and Deezer and all those little online radio stations. And then Spotify came into the picture sometime after that. And at the time, we were sort of worried Spotify was going to kind of take over and ruin everything that we had with Pandora. And a lot of people were talking about, well, we'll just not put our music on that platform. And my belief is be there for it. You never know how it's going to develop and how it's going to grow. And
Yeah.
and now it's one of the best things, Spotify.
It's a good thing you didn't turn your back on it. Kind of a similar approach that I had over the years. Like whenever I heard about a site that had a buzz and I repeatedly heard about it more and more, I think I need to be on this platform. That's why I got on YouTube in 2006. I put out my first video on YouTube, which was only a year after it was founded. And so just being aware of trends, there's a good tip right there that you can still apply to this modern era. If you hear something, either there's not a whole lot of new sites necessarily. Maybe there are new ways of doing things, but that's interesting because we're so overwhelmed, especially artists these days that are overwhelmed with all the choices that they have to market themselves, that there is a school of thought where like pick one platform to be your primary one and focus on that. And instead of trying to spread yourself over so many things, but I like your all eggs in one basket. And maybe it's different with streaming because you're just putting your music out there. It's not like you're going there to engage with people every day or every week. So it's maybe a different way of approaching it. But I like that if there's a way for people to potentially discover you, get it out there.
Yeah. And honestly, I mean, as an artist, you can promote yourself on all those platforms. You can encourage people to go listen on Apple. You can encourage people to listen on Spotify, whatever their favorite platform is. And you can promote yourself and utilize the tools that those platforms have for you to grow your fan base and be more active in that way on
Cool.
growing yourself out there.
Let's actually talk about some of those tools then, because even though I have some of my music on the streaming sites, the most successful thing that I've done in the last several years, as you probably know, is I started posting spoken word affirmations, positive self-talk statements on my YouTube channel that became very popular. I pretty quickly decided to repurpose that audio into an audio podcast that's available on all the different sites, and it became popular too. At first, I just thought it was like another way to direct traffic to the YouTube channel, but it became its own way to reach people. Some people just prefer the podcast. They never bother with going to YouTube to consume my stuff. And so I have stuff out there, but I have not benefited from the tools. So what's worked for you, or what's available for artists that are trying to get their music out on Spotify and Apple, Pandora, Amazon, that you have used successfully?
Social media is a great way to reach your followers and your fans and people that want to engage with you. And then the platforms themselves have great tools that you can use to bring awareness. Spotify has artist tools where you can create a canvas video that shows with your music that plays at the same time. You can create marquee ads to push music out to more followers. You can use their discovery mode, which helps push your music out to a lot of listeners. And then Pandora has their AMP tools, which allows you to feature tracks and create radio stations and mixtapes. And you can do artist messages and speak directly to the people who listen to your music on that platform. And, be like, hi, this is Michele McLaughlin, and I have a new album out, and, give it a listen. I hope you like it. You can really connect with your audience in that way. So those are great tools to use to connect with your fans and connect with your audience and make sure that you're engaging.
Wow, you're giving me ideas because I could be doing that with my with my affirmation stuff too. So some of those tools that you mentioned are free, like that are built into it, but some of them you have to pay for. Is that correct?
Yes, there are some pay ones, like the Spotify Marquee is a pay platform. Most of the tools I think on Pandora are all free.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay. And even if you go through an aggregator, like I'm going through CD Baby, and I know my stuff is available on Pandora, you can still access those tools.
yeah, yeah. As an artist, you just create an artist account through their artist portal, and sign up for it. They know who you are, and then you have all of the access to your stats as well. Like you can learn about how many people are listening to your music at any given time, where they're listening from, the demographic, how many spins each song is getting, and when throughout the week is the best time for streaming. There's a lot of analytics that they provide to you, which are, really helpful if you're trying to grow your fan base or at least know when the best time to engage is.
That's great. And so even at your level, where you have these so many millions, close to like 2 billion total streams over all the time that you've been online, you would think that you would just sort of like let the algorithm work its magic, but you're still actively out there promoting your stuff using these tools on a regular basis?
Yeah, whenever I do concerts, I use the Pandora artist feature to leave a message to let people know that I'm touring. I get a lot of people that come to my shows because they heard it on Pandora. I have radio stations and playlists and mixtapes that I shuffle around and add people to occasionally. And then I use the discovery mode on Spotify to push it out to get more exposure there. And I use the featured track all the time whenever I have new music. The downside is on Pandora is if your music is more than a year old, then you can't feature that anymore. It's only for new music. But that's part of the strategy, release music often.
Okay. And I know there's a strategy for, at least for pop. I don't know if you've ever used this. Maybe you're more album based, but I know there's the single release mode where you release a series of singles and maybe at the end of the cycle you put them all on an EP or something. Do you ever do that, or do you mostly release full albums at a time?
I release full albums at a time, but I have done that platform. I released 12 singles over a period of 18 months. And then I re-released all of those on an album called Memoirs. And
Okay.
the statistics that I got from that, it was people loved the music, they listened to it. They didn't seem to be non-interested when the album came out. I mean, both did equally as well. And I may do it again in the future. My next album is a full album release, but then after that, maybe I'll do some singles.
That's great. So it sounds like you're still very active in promoting your music, and it's a lot of time and attention. So I'm just curious, is that something you do completely on your own? Do you have help? Do you have virtual assistants or people that help you get that stuff done?
I do it on my own now. I have in the past hired teams to help me, and I found that just on my own is just as effective. And I guess the biggest benefit of having a team, especially with advertising, is maybe they're a little bit more in tune with the best methods for advertising and utilizing the dollars towards advertising on social platforms. But I don't really pay for advertising anymore like I used to pre-COVID. And now I'm a one-stop shop person. I'm DIY all myself.
Oh, good. You're speaking right to my heart here, because I've been that way. And I have some part-time people that help me, and that is a benefit. But I go back and forth like a lot of entrepreneurs going, should I have a team? Should I grow? Should I do more? But ultimately, yeah, I did kind of build this life that's more of a solo entrepreneur, work from home. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but on YouTube, like in the past year, there's been this whole thing of like these really prominent YouTubers that are quitting YouTube, and they're basically reaching burnout. And some of the stories follow this path of let's grow, let's get a team. And then suddenly you got all these people who are relying on you to support their families, and you got to work harder to support everybody. And then you just burn out. And so I kind of like the approach that you're taking. It's just, you can do it yourself. You just have to maybe pace yourself and choose what your priorities are, I guess, right?
Well, and it's a lot of work. I mean, we're just musicians who are putting music out, and then once you release it to the world, it belongs to the world almost. And then they listen to it, and it kind of takes on its own little thing, and then we're working on a new project. But social media influencers, I mean, they have to be there for every minute of every day. You know,
Right.
they've got people consuming their content all day long, 24/7, and the internet has lots to say about lots of things. And
Right.
I can imagine that that's a very tough job.
So you don't maybe have that kind of pressure, that schedule, but still, it sounds like you're very savvy and you have that creative musician's mind, but you also must have an analytical mind too that pays attention to the stats and stay on top of what tools are available. So I'm curious, like what motivates you to keep doing this work? Because you've been doing it for a lot of years now.
It's who I am. It's like, I always say that the music is my therapy. I go to the piano to let my feelings out and to share my experience and to express my joys and my sorrows. And it's a diary. The music is very much a diary of my life. And so I'm always going to the piano to play and to create. That's just something that I do, and it's part of my core being. And so the part of the music release and the music business and sharing it with the world is just because, I've created 12, 14 songs. I'm like, well, let's just put it out there. And so then I'll go through the process of, creating an album theme and doing the artwork and creating the transcriptions and all the things that go along with an album release. And then I put it out there for people to enjoy, and I do a little bit of marketing to let everybody know I have a new album out or I have new singles or whatever. And then I'm on to the next music that I'm creating for myself. People always ask me, like, when do you plan to retire? What do you see yourself doing when you retire? And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, retirement, because I'm always going to be creating music. I'm always going to be playing my soul out into a musical format.
I can totally relate to that. When people ask me, are you retired? I go, no. As long as I'm able to speak, and talk or type, I'm going to continue to try to impact people and spread my message or music or whatever that is. Oh, and you said something at the very beginning in there I think is crucial. Then we're going to take a short little break here before I talk to you about like multiple streams of income and stuff and some other entrepreneurial business model things I want to ask you about. But you said it's just who I am. And so that's the key, I think, to people that are super successful, or maybe the people that have really found their purpose and their passion, is that it's not something that you have to do, it's who you are. So you do those things because it's simply who you are. And that's so much a different perspective than, I got this list of things I have to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're creating music or you're doing any kind of project and your sole purpose is just to make money from that project or to make money and have a career in that, then it's sort of the wrong reason. You need to like be connected to it. You need to feel it. It needs to be ingrained in part of who you are, because when you do that and you express it, it connects with people more and people can relate and they can feel that from you. And so do the music, create your craft because you love it and because it's part of who you are and it's what drives you and it brings joy to your life. And then all the rest of the stuff, the work, the releasing of the albums and the people that listen to it, that's just the bonus stuff. And then you can work hard to like develop that and make that into a thing. But the majority of your goal and your drive should just be because it's part of who you are. Right. And then it's more authentic,
I love that. Definitely. Some people take that to an extreme, though, and it comes so naturally for them and they're doing it for the art and they discount money or they feel bad about making money. So you have that attitude, but you're not shy. I mean, you probably make a pretty decent living with all those streams, I'm guessing, and you're not ashamed of that.
No,
right?
I'm grateful. Every day I express gratitude for everything that my music has brought to my life. Like this started off as just, me making Christmas albums for family and friends. And then it turned into what it is now. And I can't be more grateful for how this has changed my life over the years.
Wow.
So.
Do you have like a specific gratitude practice or it's just something that you do kind of automatically as opposed to every morning? You have to journal or anything?
I do occasionally journal. I do have a gratitude journal actually on my phone, like one of those little gratitude apps.
Cool.
And I do a little bit of meditation here and there, but for the most part, I express thanks out into the ether. Anytime something good happens or if I reach a milestone or things like that, I just express gratitude for it.
Yeah, I'm thankful and humbled by the number of people I'm reaching through YouTube with my affirmations, and I never take that for granted. I think you have to stay in that space to be able to continue to do good in the world. So that's awesome. So after this short little message, I'm going to be asking you about multiple streams of income because you have many ways that money comes to you. And so I want to talk about that and a few more entrepreneurial business model things, but we're going to check this out and then we'll be right back to continue the conversation with Michele. I just wanted to make you aware of 3 music marketing resources with an emphasis on one in particular. There's a good chance you're already familiar with my flagship title called the Guerrilla Music Marketing Handbook, and perhaps even the 5-Minute Music Marketer. And both of those titles are well worth your time. But I want to make you aware of another title that doesn't quite get the attention as those two do. And that one is called The 9 Irrefutable Laws of Music Marketing. I'm really proud of this book and I think you would get a lot out of it. And basically what it covers is what I consider to be 9 timeless principles of music marketing. So regardless of the new website, app, or tool, because they're always changing as you know, these are principles you can apply no matter what. They're timeless. They tap into that eternal connection that people have with music and with music makers. So I think you would get a lot out of this book. It's available on Amazon in at least a dozen countries in both paperback and ebook formats. So go check it out, The 9 Irrefutable Laws of Music Marketing. So let's talk about multiple streams of income. So you mentioned earlier about spreading your eggs in different baskets as far as getting exposure, but you can also spread put your eggs in many baskets as far as the income. And you list a lot of things here I'm going to ask you about, but is it fair to say that streaming revenue, would that make up the bulk, would you say, of what currently comes in?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. And I'm curious because my main way that I support myself is with the ad revenue split that I get with YouTube running ads on my videos, and they split that with the creator. And I know that's been up, it's been down. Has that streaming income, is it leveled off? Is it continuing to rise? Has it decreased?
I would say that streaming income for me is on a rise, and it's been a pretty hefty rise. So the last several years, I have been increasing, I would probably say somewhere between 15 and 20%.
Wow.
Growth over the last several years. And advertising for me through YouTube, I'm a YouTube partner as well. And every time I release videos that have music on there that is not content ID'd, I can monetize those videos. By content ID, I mean that my music is already out there. It's been recognized by YouTube and Google as my music. And so I have companies that monetize that for me versus me being able to collect it myself.
Right.
So if I do any kind of an improvisation on my piano and post those videos on YouTube, or if I do any kind of music that's not content ID'd, I can make the advertising revenue from that, but it's very little.
I was going to say, I bet you that's pretty small compared to what you're getting through Pandora and Spotify.
Yeah.
That's great to hear because I know I benefited like a lot of people did during the pandemic. You've heard about how Netflix and all these streaming services like went crazy and now they're on the downturn. So I definitely had a peak 2021, 2022, still doing great, but it has dipped as people get back out into their normal lives. So I'm great to see that it continues to rise for you. So are downloads even a thing these days? Because I know it used to be like when iTunes came out, it was the dollar downloads, but are you getting much of that type of action these days?
So the majority of my Apple Music comes from the streaming portion, but people still are downloading the albums and individual songs. And then I have a Bandcamp store that people download individual songs and albums from there. And then there's also Amazon Music. People download from there as well. So
yeah,
it's not as much, but people are still buying CDs from me. I sell a lot of CDs every year.
But as far as downloads go, I know that Amazon, you can still purchase them as downloads. And Bandcamp isn't, for those of you who don't know, is like a site where independent artists can basically set up their own store and you can configure albums or singles however you like and sell them. But do people even purchase downloads from iTunes? I thought that was like fading away. I'm not even sure where that stands these days. But
I think it is fading away, but people are buying because you get your stats from your income from, I'm with CD Baby, and then it tells me what I made, and there's still money coming in there.
Good. On your website, you list printed songbooks, but there's also a separate listing for sheet music. So is there a difference between those two things? Explain that, what those are.
So every album, all of the songs are transcribed, and I sell each song individually on my website as an individual PDF for that song. So those are downloadable, that you get a link to download when you buy it. And then you can also purchase the digital songbook. So all of the songs in that album put together in a book. And then the printed songbooks, I actually ship those from my house. And they're manufactured, printed, spiral bound, nice, heavy card paper, so it's easy to turn pages. And so that way, as a customer, whatever it is that you're looking for, if you want to be able to just get it right away and download it and not have to wait for me to ship it to you, or maybe you want to just have one song instead of all 14 from the album, you have those options to choose however you want it.
So I'm well aware of sheet music. That's actually like the staff, and it shows you how to play it. Mm-hmm. But what a songbook is different. Does it have more visuals or compared to sheet music?
So imagine you've got one piece of sheet music and you've got the staffs and then all of the pieces of music for that, or the notes for that song.
Hmm.
And a song book would be all of the songs, all the pieces of sheet music put
Okay.
together as
Okay.
one big book that you can buy all together for the album.
Okay, I was thinking maybe it was like a storyboard and it had little illustrations and all this stuff and cartoons. Okay, I got it now. So it's like buying the Beatles songbook. It's their whole collection. Okay, now I get it. And those are usually separated by the albums, I would assume. All right,
Yep.
cool. Now I got it. I was a little slow there. So a lot of people say, "Oh, CDs are dead. I don't sell any." And I have to admit, I don't do a ton of live shows, but it's very few compared to what it used to be. Although people, I think, still, if they have a great experience at a live event, they will want to take home like a souvenir, like an autograph from the artist, like something that represents that great experience that they had, whether they even play it that often or not. Sometimes they just want to leave with that. So, are you selling physical things at your live shows, or are they still buying them from your website or Bandcamp?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually don't sell physical through Bandcamp anymore. I just do my website and
Okay.
Amazon. So on my website, I sell the physical songbooks. I also sell the physical CDs, and you can buy both together. So you can get the album and the songbook together for a discounted price. And I have discounts where the more you buy, the more you save. So there's that. But I have, 22 albums, and of those, I think 16 of them are transcribed into songbooks that you can purchase. And then I have all of those available on Amazon as well. So I sell during the holidays, especially October, November, December, because I have three Christmas albums. Those are really popular, and I sell quite a few of the CDs every year, which a lot of my colleagues and fellow musicians are seeing a big decline in CD sales, but I have seen the opposite.
Wow, that's amazing. You're like bucking all of the trends. Like, so your streaming income is rising, and you've got to be a unicorn in that CD sales are actually growing for you. What are you drinking, Michelle? I want whatever what she's having. That is amazing. Do you think it has to do maybe with the demographic? Are you reaching a group of people that are still enjoy the physical products? What do you attribute that to?
I feel like, yeah, I mean, there's people still want to have a physical product, even though I think it's surprising to me in some ways because a lot of media sources, like cars, don't have CD players anymore. Computers don't come with CD players anymore. My computer, I have to have an external drive in order to utilize a CD. So the way that you can consume CDs is a lot harder. So it is surprising to me that people are doing it, but I don't know if it's maybe an older demographic that still has their CD player sitting on their kitchen counter and
Yeah.
they're listening that way, or
Mm.
because I know that the younger generation, they definitely are utilizing streaming, online, listening, touch of your finger gets what you want, instant gratification kind of a thing. And I'd have to look into see what my
Yeah.
Amazon specifically what my demographic is. I'm not sure.
That's interesting. You also list gift cards. Is that something that you sell many of, maybe during the holidays more than anything?
Definitely during the holidays.
Okay.
Usually, so I want to say July, August is when I start selling Christmas music again, and I'll start selling gift cards there because you can buy the gift card from me. It's just a digital gift card. They don't get one in the mail, but they can use it. So a lot of piano students or kids learning how to play piano get the gift cards, and then they can come to my site, choose the songs that they want, use the gift card to buy it, and it's all streamlined and very easy.
That's awesome. Well, one thing about the physical CDs I meant to ask before we move on. So I know it used to be you'd have to get like 1,000 of them to get a good price per CD, but there's like a lot of short run options now. What route are you taking there? Do you sell enough to still warrant getting 1,000 at a time, or do you do more of those smaller runs?
I do about 3,000 with a new
Wow.
album release.
Okay.
I've had to reorder my Christmas albums multiple times. In fact, just this last Christmas, I shipped almost 2,000 Christmas CDs out last Christmas, so I had to do two new orders for that. And I use disc makers. I actually have some here. It's like just these little eco.
Oh
There's
yeah.
kind of the thinner, and it's cardboard, and it opens up.
It's like a little mini vinyl jacket kind of sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you can just open it up and then the CD slips inside. And I do that because there's no plastic and it's a
Yeah.
little bit more environmentally friendly. They're easier to ship. More of them can fit in a bubble mailer and it
Yeah.
costs less to ship them.
Wow,
So,
3,000 with
yeah.
every new album. That is amazing.
Yeah.
And on the Christmas songs, are these well-known songs? Are you writing original composition, combination of both?
It's both. So my Christmas Plain and Simple 1 and 2 albums both have 10 traditional holiday arrangements and then 5 original holiday themed compositions.
They
My
really
Christmas 3 is
oh,
all traditional.
and this is really getting geeky here, but some Christmas songs are in the public domain, so you don't have to have a license. You just have to know what those are. But where do you go these days when it is something that needs to be licensed for you to record? The services have changed where you go and do that. What do you use for that these days?
The best site that you can go to nowadays is called easysonglicensing.com.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And you can just pay your mechanical fee to be able to license the music. And then you get the information on how it needs to be credited and who the songwriters and all of that are, because those need to be credited in the album. And then it's super simple. The hardest part is getting licensing approval to do sheet music. So non-public domain songs may or may not even be approved by the publisher to be able to produce sheet music for those. But music is super easy through that
So
company.
what is it?
EasySongLicensing.com.
EasySongLicensing.com. I have to remember that. Have you, and I know a big thing for many years now has been this like sync licensing thing where you get your music in advertisements or movies or whatever. Have you had much activity in that realm at all?
No, I have had my music used in, like some documentaries. It's been played on figure skating competitions on the television, but I've never been lucky enough to land it in like a TV show or anything like that, like on prime time or anything. But I get a lot of people that'll reach out and say, hey, can I use your music in this project that I'm doing or some sort of video that they've created? And CD Baby takes care of and handles all of that for me.
That's cool. So some business stuff. We started touching on it about your demographic, but do you have a good handle? Like how would you describe, or can you describe like your ideal fan? If you had to describe him or her, gender, is it more women than men? Is it a certain age range? Well, how would you describe your ideal fans?
I would say that my demographic is actually all over the place, and it's broken out into two categories. You've got people who want the sheet music, and then you have people who want to listen. And the people that listen, it's all ages, it's all over the country, it's actually all over the world. And then it's whatever their favorite platform is, whether that's Apple or Pandora or Spotify. Those are my big three. Amazon also. And then sheet music buyers, piano teachers, a lot of older people who are coming back to the piano after many years of not playing. They heard my music in some way and they were inspired by wanting to play that. And so they're taking up lessons again or starting to play again after a long time. But those are my two, if you broke them out into two separate groups.
Yeah. Another way that you're a unicorn, well, they always say you can't appeal to everybody, yet you're saying it's pretty wide ranging. So I just love the way you're breaking all these rules, what you're supposed to do with music. So there's a lesson for you right now. There are no rules. You make your own.
Rules.
You make it apply to your own thing. So what mechanisms do you have in place to stay in touch with your fans? Like, have you built an email list? How active are you on social media and interacting with people? So how do you engage with people and stay in touch with them overall?
I am pretty active on Facebook and Instagram. I'm posting a lot there and sharing little snippets and bits of my life. It's not all music related. I share a lot of, just anything that's happening in any given moment or exciting things that have been going on, travel, that sort of stuff. And I engage on social media. I comment back and have conversations with people there. I do have a mailing list through my website. You can sign up for that. And I send out newsletters whenever I have something important to share. I don't really send those out when there's not anything that I'm trying to promote. So if I have a show or a new album or anything like that, I'll send a lot more newsletters. And then I get a lot of messages through the contact form on my website, and then I'll respond directly to whatever the questions are. A lot of people will just message me to say, hey, I love your music, and I just wanted you to know how it touched me in some way, and then I'll write back, and then we have a conversation and that sort of thing. So it's nice.
That's really important. I think a lot of the things that is often overlooked. So you're pretty accessible to your fans and you're responsive to them by email and comments on social media. So you stay on top of those things. Because I know that there are a lot of people that don't. And they sometimes put out this like, hey, I'm available, DM me. And, I love to read your comment. And they don't read them. You never hear back from people. So I look at this equation through two different perspectives, one as a fan and one as an artist. And I know as a fan, when I reach out to somebody that I know and respect and they respond to me and get back to me, even if it's just a sentence or something, I'm like thrilled. I have a whole new perspective of that person. Actually, you know who John Waite was? He had that song in the 80s called I'm Not Missing You at All. He sang in a band called The Babies and all that. I just randomly reached out to him on Twitter a couple of years ago. Like 10 minutes later, he responds to me and answered a quick question I had. And I was like over the moon with joy. And yet there are other people that I try to reach out to that really aren't that all that popular that you think they'd be overwhelmed and just never hear back from them. And you have like a different perspective on them. And so I'm glad
Yeah.
that you said that because that's just crucial. And do you mind if I ask real quick, just how many people roughly are on your email?
I think I have about 13,000 people on my mailing
Okay,
list right now.
that's
I
pretty
do
good.
have an algorithm on my mailing list. It's an automation that will see like these people haven't opened emails in this amount of time, or it's been more than 6 months and they haven't engaged. And then I can decide, or I'll send them a message to say, hey, do you still want to be on my mailing list?
Right.
And I manage my mailing list that way so I'm not paying for people that don't want to be there.
Exactly. Yeah, and you only want to send stuff that people are actually paying attention to. Just a couple more
Mhm.
questions here. So let me ask you, Michelle, what are the best parts of what you do with your music career? Things that light you up, that just thrill you, and you've touched on them earlier, but if I were to ask you that directly.
For me, it is the thrill and excitement of a new album release or sharing new music because I'm so excited. I want to get it out there and I want to know what people think. And I also want them to have something new that they can enjoy. So I really love that part of it. I love the energy and the connection that I get with fans when I do shows. I leading up to a show, there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of preparation and stuff. And then when you do the show, you're kind of like riding this cloud nine of
Right.
just excitement and like this was amazing. And then you kind of go back into the process of trying to prepare for the next one. So I really love that moment during and after a show and being able to visit with the people that come to see me and take pictures and hear their story and share a moment with them. I really love
Yeah.
that.
There's a whole
And,
different
just
dynamic in a live setting. As much as
sure.
I love the digital realm, yeah, meeting people is a whole nother level. So we've been put a lot of positive spin on this, the amazing things you've accomplished. But I know you're just a solo entrepreneur. So let me just ask you, what are some of the most challenging things about what you do as a musician?
Staying relevant, being consistent, having the bandwidth and the brain power some days to accomplish the items on my task list. Some days I just don't want to do it, and other days I procrastinate. And so consistency is hard. Sometimes finding creativity is really hard. I'll sit down at the piano and I will have every intention of creating and writing and maybe coming up with something new. And I'm just hit with a mental block, and everything that comes out of me doesn't sound great. And I feel disconnected from it. And then I go through a process of feeling kind of bad about that. And so the creativity portion of it can sometimes be very challenging. Staying motivated can sometimes be really challenging. Finding time to get it done, even though like I'm very aware of how to do the things I need to do. Sometimes I just stand in my own way, and that can be a challenge as well.
I can relate to everything you just said there. So yeah, for people who are aspiring, maybe you're working a day job and you have this dream of working on your own. There's so many benefits. I definitely recommend it if that's what you're being called to do. Just know there'll be a honeymoon phase where, oh my God, this awesome new world, and then yeah, but there's also work involved, and there's times when you don't feel motivated. I think it's important to point that out. But that's part of the journey. We're humans. We experience the
Yeah.
full range of emotions. And so, what advice would you have for people who are wanting to pursue this, whether they're instrumentalists or they're wanting to pursue a similar path that you have?
It's a multi-part thing. So number one, be patient. Be very, very patient because this is a business that takes a lot of time. So don't be hard on yourself with the process and the time it takes for your music to grow and get out there. And then also believe in yourself and don't let any of the negative comments, if you get them, or any of your own self negative talk get in your way. Like, put yourself out there, be proud of what you accomplish in that way, and be excited about sharing your craft with others. Because one of the most rewarding parts is knowing that something that you put out there is touching somebody in a way that you may not even have any idea, like it's changed their life in some amazing way. And if you don't put it out there, you didn't have an opportunity to change someone's life. And then also just be willing to try and be willing to fail because it takes a lot of trial and error practice to learn what works for you, because what may work for me doesn't necessarily work for someone else. And so you have to find all of the little things that work for you and then nurture those things and let go of the things that don't, but don't be afraid to try those things. And then also don't compare yourself to others. Comparison is the thief of joy. go and study other people that you admire and see how they're doing it and emulate that and figure out how that works for them and how you can make it work for you. But don't compare yourself and feel like you didn't do a good job or you failed because you didn't accomplish the same thing they did. And be patient, so patient.
Wow, everything you just said was like a master class on how to succeed at anything. That's gold right there. It's going to be its own standalone video. All right, Michele, where can people find you online and where would you like to send them in particular?
My website is the best place. It's michelemclaughlin.com, Michele with one L, so michelemclaughlin.com. I'm also on all of the social media platforms. I'm not on TikTok. Strike that. I'm not on TikTok, but I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook and I'm on YouTube. And so, but my website's the best place if you want to communicate with me and follow everything.
McLaughlin is McLaughlin. That's .com. Michele with one L before that. And you said Facebook and I think Instagram are your two primary places that you like to kind of hang out.
Yep.
That is awesome. I really appreciate you being here and doing this. Congratulations on your success. I think this was going to inspire a lot of people, whether they're musicians or not. And thanks for being on the Inspired Life interview series. So thanks a lot, Michele.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been such a nice time talking with you.